Now you're probably thinking who I am, so I'm going to officially introduce myself. My name is Enmar, and I am the founder of Pure AI.
In that room you just saw was more than $3 million worth of budget waiting to be spent on AI solutions that my company got to be a part of. At the end of this video, not only am I going to show you the recording of me delivering this presentation, but I'm going to fully break it down for you and literally explain to you so that way you know the exact angle and mental framework you should take when you're trying to sell AI solutions to businesses in 2026 and moving forward. If you don't know who I am, my name is Anmar and I run this bad boy right here called Pure AI, and I've been building and delivering custom AI infrastructure solutions to businesses for 2.5 years now and still continuing. I want to be straightforward. If you understand what I'm trying to explain to you in this video, you're going to have a key to be able to sell AI to almost any business in 2026 and beyond. I'm going to explain to you the mental approach when it comes to selling AI systems to these businesses in a way that makes it very hard for them to actually say no to. And the reason why is because this is a very different approach than a lot of businesses and people are actually used to. So in order for me to do that with you guys, I'm going to literally deliver to you the same presentation I gave them, but with a little bit of a twist so that way it's catered to you guys and you can actually understand it. And as I deliver it, I'm going to explain step by step the mental framework behind why and what I said, so that way you have a behind the curtains look at everything that we presented to these people. Before I jump into that, I need you to understand this foundation that you have to base what you say off of when you're talking to different business owners or people that run these companies, okay? When you're talking to these people, you have to assume that they already have some sort of premeditated vision in their head about how AI is already used. This vision usually comes from how they've actually experienced AI, which is just like you, right? Through different products, tools, SaaS, apps. It's just this standalone thing. It's a product that happens to have AI built into it and can do a lot of AI stuff. And so when I walked into that room, that idea was in the back of my mind. I took into account how they already perceive AI. And so my main goal and your main goal, what it should be, is to shift that thinking, right? Is to move them from that mindset to what I'm about to show you. And so once you can actually properly explain this shift, once you can help them make that mental jump, you've pretty much got them. The reason why is very simple. This kind of perspective is not very common yet, okay? It might show up here and there, but in the grand scheme of things as of right now, it's still pretty rare. And so when these business owners meet somebody who can help them see AI differently and clearly can help them understand its ROI, business impact, and outcomes, that's when you know you've won. And so the main pillars you have to focus on when you're talking to business owners is you have to help them vividly imagine a world where their business runs smoother, saves time, saves money, and actually grows through AI use. That's really what matters, because at heart, this is what a lot of business owners really care about. This is what they think about. Okay, does this thing take work off of my plate and buy me back time? Does this save me money? Is it easy to use? What is my return on investment? These are the key things that a lot of people in business actually care about that run the business. And so when you keep these in the back of your mind, you're going to notice your tone and your conversations naturally change. You're going to stop talking about the product, and instead what you're going to do is you're going to frame it around their specific problems, their issues. You're going to frame it to them. Another thing you want to do is ask good questions. You have to uncover what it is that they're actually struggling with. Let them talk, let them explain everything to you, and the more that they share with you, the more material you actually have to work with in the conversation. Your response should clearly show how an AI system or whatever AI solution that you're going to be presenting or would be presenting could take care of their problem. Not just how it works, but what the outcome would look like if it was implemented. So let me show you a quick example. Let's say you have a conversation with somebody and they say we're processing a lot of sales orders. It's taking 2 hours each. That's going to be your cue. So in your response, you're going to want to talk about how you've solved something similar before or how you would solve it with AI. Okay. And then show them the new outcome. Actually paint that image for them. What if we could reduce that from 2 hours to 15 minutes? And then you're going to bring it back to their return on investment. Keep those responses around their problems and what they told you, and around results, right? Around the outcome. Again, you want them to imagine what that final result is going to actually look like with your AI automation's help, with your system, with whatever you're trying to actually sell them. So when you watch the actual recording of me presenting the thing, you're going to watch one moment where I directly called out somebody and I mentioned an issue that they specifically mentioned to me. And as I did that, I quickly painted a picture for them and I showed them literally as I was talking what I was talking about and how it would be able to solve the thing that they mentioned to me. It's a very small thing, but it plants a seed in their mind, and that's really what matters. And so at the end of the day, the main key things you really have to keep in mind is that a lot of business owners care about the most just saving time, saving money, reducing stress, and seeing a clear return on investment. Their big question is, if they paid you, what is the return on time? What is the return on money? And what is the return on the value in comparison to what it is that they paid you? So if you can articulate what you're saying around making that clear, basically putting it around their issues, It's really going to be a core to driving those kind of conversations. Now onto the presentation itself. I actually started off the presentation by letting them know my goals and my intentions up front. This is so they have an expectation of what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do, and how I'm going to do it. Very straightforward and upfront. And I actually try to make the way that I present very minimalistic, straightforward, and hard hitting, because a lot of business owners like the no BS approach. Just tell me what I need to know without all of the extra fluff. And so I told them right away, I said, my goal, word for word, by the way, my goal and what I'm going to show you, today is hopefully get you to shift the way you see AI by the time you leave the building. That sentence alone is a powerful sentence. It's like this guy's saying he can shift the way I think about AI. It's a pretty bold thing to say, so I ended up calling it out too. I said, I know it's a bold statement, but I really do think that it's actually possible. So at this point, they're probably thinking, okay, I sat here and I listened to a lot of people talk about AI before, and nobody has been able to actually do that. So I transitioned by saying, I've been in your position too, sitting on the other side, sitting there and listening to somebody talk about whatever AI product or service that they're actually offering. And then I told them the one thing I hated about those sessions is how over glamorized they made AI out to actually be, because we all know AI has this shiny object syndrome around it in the world right now, and it's moving so fast. And because it's moving fast, a lot of people and companies are just pushing AI products into the market with no real substance and value. So I told them up front, I said, I plan to be as straightforward and as practical as possible. I'm not trying to over glamorize. Instead, I want to share the real world implications of agentic AI. That is literally what I told them, maybe in a slightly different way with different words, but that was the message that I tried to deliver here. And the reason why is because when you're speaking to business owners, especially if your goal is to shift that mindset from that old lens of looking at AI as these different standalone tools or products into AI automation, you need something for them to actually hold on to, okay? Something that differentiates you from everybody else. Really, the best way to do that is to compare yourself to the rest of the herd and then give them something tangible that they can actually hold on to, that basically takes you in their minds out of being just another person or another vendor that's just selling AI. And I tried to do that up front by letting them know, hey, I know you're probably used to seeing people talk about AI in this over glamorized way. I'm going to do something different by showing you the real world use cases and try to be straightforward and practical. And then after that, I introduced myself, just said, hey, my name is Anmar. I'm the founder of Pure AI. And again, you're going to notice a pattern right here. At this point, I tried to anticipate what they would be thinking in this specific moment right here. They're probably thinking, here we go, another AI company. And that's actually fair, because there's so many different AI companies right now reaching out to businesses. And a lot of business owners are tired of hearing things from these AI companies. And so I ended up calling this out too. And you're going to see that pattern where I basically like to anticipate what people will be thinking and frame what I'm saying next around that, a little anticipation. And I said, now at this point, you're probably thinking this is just another AI company. But remember earlier when I promised you that I wanted you to see AI through a completely different lens, that's actually the same lens that the team and I saw very early on. And it became the foundation of why Pure AI was born in the first place. And it's something very different than what a lot of businesses and people are used to seeing. And then I said, in order for me to keep that promise to you, to actually show you that difference and make you see what we saw early on, we have to start at the original lens that you're already looking through. And then I switched the slide to this one. And then I said, a lot of people and businesses view and use AI in the form of different standalone tools. Put a bunch of different logos on this slide, things like Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude, Cursor, Windsurf, all these different AI tools. And if you're not familiar with these are some of the most powerful AI tools that are commonly used right now in the world. And so a lot of people are used to seeing AI in this kind of form, right? A standalone product or a SaaS or a tool or whatever you want to call it. And if you're not familiar with SaaS, it means software as a service, but basically it's a product that you can actually subscribe to and use. And I switched the slide and I said, all of these AI tools and products are amazing. They're each powerful and impressive in their own way, but they share one thing in common. And then I went to the next slide. They were saying they're confined within their use cases, features, and integrations. We're framing the first problem and we're saying, okay, you have a pre-existing idea of what AI actually is, and it's not necessarily wrong, but it is limited. Let me show you how and why. And we're basically saying these tools are limited to what the vendors designed and designated for them to actually be used as. So when you're using an AI product or AI tool, you can only use it based on its features and use cases, and they have to be operated by somebody within their features, meaning somebody has to open the tool, know how to use it at the correct part of the process, and they're limited by the actual capability of the tool that they're using. So this slide right here represented the constraints and limitations that are tied to these AI standalone tools or products or SaaS, which is the main idea we're trying to shift away from, so that way we can actually lead into AI automation. And we're about to lead into that perfectly. You're going to see how. And then on this slide, when we're talking about the confinement of these tools, I said one more thing. I said this is like having a tool set with all these these amazing tools, but there's still friction. And that's a keyword right here. The term friction itself in business, whenever it's used, it means that whatever it's being used with could be made smoother. So that way there is no resistance, right? So imagine maybe something sliding on a smoother table versus something rough and rigid. The rougher surface is going to cause more friction, which makes whatever is moving move slower. But if that surface was smoother, then it would actually move quicker. And so here what I'm doing is I'm using that word to paint an image saying there is friction in your employees needing to know how to use each tool. Not only that, use it for the specific workflows and processes in the workflows. Not only that, but there's still the friction of you having to constantly switch between them. You're opening one AI tool, using that output, and then getting to the other one. You're jumping from one into the next, and they have to know how to actually use all of them. And because different AI tools apply to different parts of the process within the workflow, in order for a company to actually be efficient operationally with AI, the burden would fall on the employees. They have to have this kind of deep understanding or knowledge about the AI tools that they're using, and not only that, how to use them, how they fit together, and when to use them. So we're focusing on that point right here because this is the complete polar opposite of what we're trying to show them, which is AI automation. We're highlighting that, hey, there's a lot of friction in this old way of doing things because you have to manage and understand all of these different tools. Then I switched to this next slide right here, and I said, word for word, by the way, I said, if you want to call yourself an organization that's moving towards AI adoption, this is not the most useful, business impactful, nor the highest ROI use case of AI. And look at the keywords here, right? Business impactful, high ROI. Both of these tie directly into the pillars that I mentioned to you guys earlier, the things that businesses actually care about, which are saving time, saving money, driving growth, or achieving real return on investment. Okay. And so I told them, hey, that's not the most useful, the most business impactful, nor is the highest ROI. It's not what you're looking for. And that's what they're expecting it to be in the original mindset. Now we're starting to actually push that shift. And then on the next slide, now I'm explaining why I said what I said, right? Obviously, I told them this is not the most impactful, not the highest ROI. And then here we're going to dive into the small reasoning as to what that is, just to put the two different perspectives for them in front of the table. And you can actually compare what we're actually trying to showcase versus the original mindset of the product. Main thing was showing that friction that I just explained to you guys, which is basically their employees having the burden of knowing when and how to use all of these tools and fitting their workflows and processes around the AI products, the AI tools, which led me into the next slide. And this allowed me to paint a deeper image of that with a very quick example that basically explains that main idea. And again, this supports the main argument, and chances are the person you're talking to doesn't know how to do this. Their employees definitely are not going to know how to do this. And so once I go through this example, I told them, hey, this is not the best way to actually go about it because it puts the burden of knowing how and when to use each tools at different parts of the workflow on the employees. So I briefly went over this example. I said, let's assume we're creating a marketing video for a cybersecurity topic, something like phishing, social engineering, whatever it may be. And then I walked them through what the normal employee would have to do in this case. So they would have to basically go to ChatGPT first, and they're gonna have to create the transcript by using a prompt like this. The prompt says, I'll give you 5 main core cybersecurity topics I want to cover. Your job is to create a 2-minute deliverable voiceover transcript for each of the 5 targeted for normal end users. And I explained this kind of prompt would need to be thought of and created by the employees at this point to actually get the first transcript. And then I added a sentence right here that I made sure to point out to them. I said, we'll do these one by one. It's just one sentence, but it's very important whenever I was explaining it, because that single line actually makes the output that's coming out of the AI higher quality because of the AI's context window limitations. What that means is basically the AI has a limit into how much context it can actually spit back out to you. It can't give you the entire best quality transcript in one go. And so if the employee doesn't know that, they're going to assume it can. And when it doesn't, they're going to assume I might as well just do this manually. So they're going to try to waste time piecing it together bit by bit. And that right there is the friction that I wanted them to see. Okay. The employee going back and forth with the AI, because it's not going to give them everything inside of one output, at least not in its best quality. Okay. And so I showed them basically how much time this right here would take. And then let's assume they actually did it, right? Let's say they got the full 10 minutes of transcript. They'd have to create the visuals for it using another tool, something like Google VO3. Explain that Google VO3 is a text to video model, but here's the catch right here. In order to use a text to video model properly, you cannot prompt these models the same way that you prompt chat models like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. They're completely different. You have to direct them. Now there's a visual cinematic element into your prompting, and they're visual prompts, right? So now you'd have to have somebody that visually takes these transcripts and switch them into something that Google VO3 can actually understand and use to generate those visuals. And then I gave them another example of a prompt that the employee would have to use, knowing what they should know about Google VO3. And so if they don't, they're not going to be able to use this prompt, or at least they're not going to know how to prompt it to convert that. So this is very simple. We're saying your goal is to generate visual scenes using VO3 for the transcripts I'm going to give you. The transcript is going to be overlaid on top of the generated scenes. So what I want you to do is I want you to look through VO3's documentation and help me turn each transcript into an optimized prompt that visualizes what needs to be shown based on the transcript itself. Here, what I'm saying is I'm literally asking GPT to go out and look at the documentations that were provided by Google for the world, so that way the world knows how to actually prompt with their specific text to video model. And we're basically having AI read that documentation. After it goes through this documentation, that's when it would know what's the best practices to actually convert the transcript into visual prompts that we can then use with Google VO3. So then at this point, the employee would have to have another friction point. Again, more friction on the employee needing to understand all of this while using the tools, or at least before using them. So now let's say they do convert the entire transcript and they get their videos from Google VO3. Well, now what they have to do is they have to have voiceover over these videos. And so they'll have to use a text-to-speech model, something like 11 Labs, where you can actually give a transcript and then get voice back. And then the employee would have to stitch it all up together using something like Google Premiere Pro. Next slide, I tied it back to what I said earlier when I was saying, hey, your workflow has to fit the AI. I said, think about it like this. Instead of fitting the organization's flow around the AI, which is what I just explained to you right now and what I just demonstrated to you, think about it like this. Why not fit the AI around the organization's workflow? This is the lens I'm trying to show you today. And I said this word for word, by the way. I said, this is what I'm trying to show you today. And this is the same lens that we saw very, very early on. And we put all of our bets into it. And it actually unfolded into an entire industry called AI automation, which is what I'm about to show you. And it's the reason why I'm standing in front of you today. So what I did today is I gave them a platform to step onto, really a bridge that took them from this old mindset, this old lens of seeing AI products and AI tools as these standalone things, into what I'm about to show them and explain to them. And then in the next slide, I officially introduced it. I said, I'm talking about customized AI infrastructure automation systems. At this point, once again, I tried to anticipate what they were probably thinking about at this point. Because if I was sitting there and having never have heard about this before, I'd be wondering, okay, what is this? What the hell is he talking about? So in the next slide, I said, you're probably thinking what this is. And these are custom backend AI systems. And I started showing them examples of what these systems can look like. I said, they can look like this. This is one of the systems. And then I moved to the next slide. I said, or they can look like this. And in this third slide, I made sure this one looked very complex on purpose because I wanted them to have this wow moment, like this realization that, okay, this can get really, really deep and really complex. And then I said, it could even look like this right here. Look at this monstrosity. There's so much going on behind this, and this is months worth of work right here. And so now they've seen three completely different systems, three completely different things, but they still don't fully know what these actually are. They know them only by term. And so I introduced that concept earlier. I said, what these are at core is they are built around your organization's logic. And what I meant by that is this: every business has different processes that only happen when something else triggers or allows these processes to actually go through. It's what's known as conditional logic. And so it's basically a chain of events. One thing happens only if a condition is met. And so I told them right here, think about every process in your business like a tree with many different branches. Each branch represents a possible path, right? And so the process has to move down whichever branch it actually needs to based on the logic of what's happening in that specific moment. And so it can take one of several branches. And this is what I was explaining them right here, is that these systems are built around your organization's logic. It's based entirely on your processes around your branches. And again, that ties back to the main idea of what I was showing them, that, hey, this is not something you use. This is something that's built around the problems you have. We build these systems around them. We design them to solve and streamline those specific processes or issues that you guys are having, and it's customized to you guys. This is really important because this takes it out of something that's generic. And then I said they're both Python and LangChain based, and then I briefly explained to them what this actually means. Now, if you're not talking to technical CEOs or IT directors, you really don't even need to say these technical parts, but I mentioned these because I was sitting in front of people that were running IT departments. And so I explained to them that these systems can be both code and no code depending on what's actually being built. And then I said they're API centric. Okay, if you've been watching me, you should at least know what an API is or how to use it. But basically what this means is we can bring your existing business application stack to life in a way where different things inside of your business that don't normally talk to each other now can actually talk to each other. That's what API centric means. And then I added they also have their own internal vector databases and they run with customized large language models. And again, as I explained each of these pieces, I tied them back to the problems that I heard earlier from the CEOs, things that they had mentioned during previous talks or previous discussions what we have. I'm not going to go deep into the technical parts in this presentation right here because that's not what this video is about. Probably going to have dedicated videos for vector databases and APIs and all this amazing stuff. But here, the goal is not to teach the technicals. It's basically to show them the idea. These systems we're talking about, they're not just tools. They are back-end AI systems that are built around your problems. They're built around your logic. They are autonomous, right? They work in the background without you having to actually use them. So I followed this next slide by saying they can look and they can be built a lot of different ways, because unlike your old way of seeing AI, I kind of went back a step just to give a comparison of, hey, here's how you used to think about AI as these different tools or products. Now let's compare that to what I'm about to show you next. And so here I said, because unlike the old way of seeing AI as these different standalone products or tools, these systems are living and breathing. And when I said that, I followed with what I mean by this is they don't actually have to be used by any employee in order for them to work. They work automatically in the background at all times based on the things that are happening in your business. That sentence is very important because it's what separates everything that we talked about before, all of this different standalone tool talk, from what we're about to showing them, right? Those require people to actually use them, which mean they also require people to know how and when to use them, which is the main friction and the burden that we were highlighting, and even using them in ways that they don't even know exist yet. So now we're completely flipping that idea. We're telling them, hey, you don't actually need to know how to use the AIs that are inside of your business. You don't even need to know that they exist. And it's not a standalone thing that you're actually having to use. At this point, they should be starting to shift how they're thinking about AI or how they're seeing it, because now we're showing them that different aspect. And I move to the next slide, and I said, just like a suit, they are measured around you and they're fitted around you to do a lot of different things. That line alone lets them know that, hey, we're not fitting your workflow around the AI. We're actually fitting the AI system around your different workflows. And that's the lens that we take with AI, saying, hey, this is measured around you. It ties directly back to solving their specific problems, their issues. And so in that next slide, I said they're meant to solve your unique organizational bottlenecks. Immediately after that, I switched this slide showing the definition of a bottleneck. And while they were reading this, I said, these are the things that by definition, if they were to be removed, your operations would be smoother, your efficiencies higher, and your return on investment would be much better. Boom, just like that, that single sentence reinforces the main pillars that I told you about earlier that you should focus on: business impact, high ROI, saving time, and saving money. Again, we're speaking directly to business owners. And so here, when we're speaking to decision makers, we want to really focus on these things. Then I moved to the next slide and I said, they can streamline and optimize your unique processes. I emphasize here unique because this tells them that we're not giving you something that we're giving your neighbor or your competitor or whoever else that's in the market. We're building this specifically for them around their problems, based on their workflows, their processes, and their employees. Then I went to the next slide and I said, they work alongside your team agentically in a way that provides a helping hand and lifts the kind of work that the employees would normally have to do manually and repeatedly, but now there's almost an extra hand helping them with all this kind of dread work. Then I said they meet you at your desired resolution. When I said this, I gave them a quick example. I said what I mean by this is, let's say you have a report that needs to be delivered to two completely different departments. Each of these departments needs it in a completely different format. Maybe the executive team wants to see it like a heat map, something that's like high level, they can look at and scan from a bird's eye view. But the management team needs something much more granular. They want to look at the nitty-gritty details of whatever. The AI system would be able to deliver the same report to both of them in the exact level, format, and detail that they want. That's what it means that, hey, we're delivering something at your desired resolution. This is the output you need and in the form that you need it to. And then I added one last point that's also very important to say, because every company cares about their security and data governance policies. I said these systems, they can be fully private, they could be self-hosted, meaning they live inside of their security in their network, in their infrastructure, or they could be cloud hosted if they prefer for them to be. Went to the next slide and I said, because they're autonomous and agentic, they work 24/7, they don't sleep, and they handle the kind of work that lets your employees actually do what they were hired to do, instead of being dragged into all these different side quests that take a lot of their time. This reinforces the idea of no friction for your employees, no friction for you guys, no friction for the team. You don't need to know how to use these different systems and these different tools. They just work quietly in the background, agentically at all times. At this point, I slowly transitioned to voice AI and I did 2 demos back to back, both focused on different voice AI systems that I did. Now in this particular video, that demo part doesn't really matter, and I'm not going to fully go through the voice AI demos here, because my goal in this video, again, is to explain to you guys conceptually how you should talk about selling AI automations and actually building AI automations that are built using platforms like N8N, Make.com, Power Automate, and other advanced workflow automation platforms with AI. So the main focus right here is how you should talk about it to business owners. They don't just care about what it can do, but they care more about what's the actual outcome look like whenever you're building these systems for them. They need to be able to envision it and imagine the outcome clearly. You have to paint that image in their head, and you have to wrap that image around their problems, right? The ones that you've identified earlier, by asking them the right questions and letting them actually talk. And then you have to present your system in a way that's not centered around features, but it's really centered around personalization, around what it is that it can do for them and their specific unique issues. That's the key difference. That's what a lot of people care about. They want to feel like they're being catered to, and that's the power of custom AI automations and agentic systems in general, is the fact that you can build them around people and you can say, hey, I know you you have this specific issue, this specific problem, I actually built this for you guys to take care of it in a way where you don't even need to look at the AI, but the AI can do all of these things in a powerful way in the back end. So just to summarize, when you're talking to business owners about AI, you have to understand that they probably have some premeditated picture about what AI already is, and that's mostly meaning tools, apps, products, standalone, something they can plug into, use for a minute, and then actually close out. And that's how the majority of people in the world and businesses in the world see it as of right now. And that's the very first thing you have to shift in those conversations, because when you start talking about AI from this specific angle, you get lumped in with everybody else, right? The app builders, the chatbot sellers, the hey, we use GPT for whatever crowd. Your job is to flip that lens. It's just change how they actually see it. And that's the very first one that you can get. And you can do that by acknowledging what they already believe, right? Say something like, hey, most people see AI as these different tools, GPT, Copilot, products, whatever it is you want to call, but what we do is different. And then you introduce that new lens. Hey, instead of seeing AI as something you can use, you can actually have systems that are built around you that'll work without you having to use them. Something like that changes their mindset. And now they're not thinking about tools or products. They're thinking about AI using their business logic and everything that's built around them. From there, you explain that difference. Simply, you say, hey, traditional AI tools need people to open them, use them, and know how they actually work. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Just say, hey, these systems don't need to be used. They just work based on what's happening in your environment, and they're built to handle repetitive work in the background without human intervention. That's what separates what you're offering from whatever they're seeing before. You're not selling a tool, you're selling a system, something that's alive inside of their business. From there, you connect it back to what they actually care about, because here's the truth. They do not care about what AI model you use. They don't care if it's built on LangChain or Python or vector databases. They don't care about any of that. They care about outcomes. They care about the 4 pillars that I explained to you earlier every single time: saving time, saving money, business impact, and return on investment. Everything you say should come back to those main 4 points. And so when you're showing these different examples, don't show fancy tech, show bottlenecks. Say, hey, you know how your team spends 2 hours processing a single order? That's a bottleneck. If we remove that, you gain time, you gain efficiency, and you gain revenue. That's what our systems do. So you're not just explaining automation, you're reframing it as business optimization, and then you're reinforcing it with simplicity. Instead of you or your team trying to actually use the AI tool and have all these different limitations with your integrations and use cases, we would handle all of that and we let it run for you. That feels like relief when they hear it. It tells them you don't have to actually change what you do. We're just going to build something that supports what you already have. And you can go further and say, hey, think about it like a tailored suit. It's measured around your business. It's around your processes, around your issues, and around your outcomes. That's what makes AI automation powerful. That's when you start seeing shifting happening in the mindsets of all these people that you're talking to, and they start to gain more trust in what you're saying. They start to realize this is not about adding another piece of software to their business. It's about removing friction entirely, because that is what it all comes down to. Friction, right? Every business knows and has felt what friction feels like. It's time wasted. It's employees doing work that should have been automated. It's all the little inefficiencies that pile up every single day. Let them visualize what it would look like if things ran a little bit more smoothly, if reports sent themselves, if things happened automatically, if tasks got completed without anybody actually touching them. That's the big piece. That's what moves the conversation away from hype, away from AI as this really cool shiny thing, into AI as an infrastructure, as something that is optimizing. Once they see it that way, you're not just selling them something, you're helping them reimagine what's possible for their business and their business operations. And now I'm going to show you me delivering what I just told you about. This is as real as it gets. I do apologize for some of the audio bits that are bad. I did add captions just to make things hopefully easier to follow, but this is a pretty powerful presentation, one that I use to help big companies define the future for how businesses and AI should actually work together. Enjoy.
Okay, so my goal and what I'm about to show you today is hopefully get you to see the use of AI in a completely different lens by the time you leave the building. There's a very bold statement to make, but I really do think it's possible, okay? Now, I've also been on the same side, right? Sitting there and listening to somebody talking about whatever AI product solution they have. And the one thing I did not like about those sessions is how over glamorized they made AI out to be. We all know AI has this shiny object syndrome around it right now, and there's this huge window because of that a lot of people are able to produce these AI products and push them onto the market, right? I just want to let you guys know up front my way and how I'm going to show you, because I'm going to try to be as practical and as straightforward as possible. Just my way of showing you the real world implications of agentic AI, okay? Now you're probably thinking who I am, so I know you guys know me. I'm going to officially introduce myself. My name is Enmar, and I am the founder of Pure AI. Okay? At this point, you're probably thinking this is just another company number 632, or however many I've heard about this year. Except, right, there is one very important distinguishing factor. Okay? I mentioned to you that I wanted you to leave seeing AI through a different lens. That's the same lens that we saw very early on. And it's important that I highlight this because it's not the same as what a lot of people are used to, okay? And so in order for me to not only keep my promise on what I just promised you, but only distinguish pure AI from what you're used to, we have to start at the original lens, okay? Which is probably what you guys are used to right now. Most people and organizations, they view and use AI as these different standalone tools or products. Things like Claude, ChatGPT, Lovable for anybody that's vibe coding, Cursor, Windsurf, whatever else that's out there, okay? And the thing is about these tools, they are all amazing, but they share one thing in common, okay? Now you might be wondering, what is that thing? They are confined in their use cases, features, and integrations. Think about it, right? What they are is they are built and sold as SaaS products or solutions that can do a lot of AI magic. However, they're bound to what that AI magic actually is. They're bound to by what the vendors designed and designated for you guys, the consumers, to go out there and actually see. And then if you like those features and products, then you choose to subscribe to, which is the normal way of seeing AI in the world right now, okay? It's no different than having a tool set of all these amazing tools, but there is still that friction of each of you knowing not only when to use each tool, how to use it, but use it in a way that, benefits you from a perspective that you don't even really understand yet, because all these tools are so different from each other, okay? And that's the big shift that I really want to highlight, okay? If you are thinking that way, this is not the most business impactful, highest ROI use of AI, okay? If you really want to call yourself an organization that's moving towards AI adoption, you have to take yourself out of that thinking. The reason why, okay, is because the organization's workflow has to fit the AI product. What does that mean? It means that in order for a tool to actually be useful and actually be usable, you not only have to know how to use the tool, when to use it, but the employee has to have the burden of knowing how to use these tools in the specific parts of the workflows and process, and then they also have to use them in a way that they don't even know exists yet, which is by chaining them, by using the output of one of them as the input of the other, okay? That is a real skill set. That's gonna be a very real thing in the future for employees that need to use AI tools, okay? And that's what I mean by that. So let me show you just a very quick example. Let's say we're creating a training video for the marketing department. If I were to do this the AI way, okay? I don't know if you guys can see these prompts, but I would go to ChatGPT, or Ed would go to ChatGPT, right? And then he would say, I will give you, let's say we're doing a marketing video for cybersecurity, okay? I will go to GPT and I will say, I'll give you 5 main core cybersecurity topics I want you to cover. Your job is to create a 2-minute deliverable voiceover transcript for each of the 5 targeted for normal end users. Right here, the end user has to know to prompt this, okay? That's a big struggle I know a lot of you guys have talked about, is how do we know how to prompt? Somebody mentioned it earlier today, and this is laying out the foundation for trying to create that video, because obviously we have to create a script first to create the video around it. So then we're gonna say, we'll do these one by one. This one sentence here, you have no idea how important this is, because AI has context window, and that context window is limited to how much it can actually give you back. And so if you just expect your entire thing in this 1 or 2 different outputs, you are wrong, because it doesn't fit in that context window, though it looks huge. But GPT is not designed to do that. So what's going to happen is the employee who should do this would go back and forth for about an hour and a half, until they get the full 10-minute transcript that they actually like. Then they would take it to another ChatGPT chat, and they'll say, your goal is to generate visual scenes using VO3 for the transcripts I will give you. Have you guys seen those big videos of the apes that hold the selfie stick that kind of blew up everywhere online? I see some of you guys smiling. That is created using Google VO3. This is a text-to-video model. And again, this is AI tool number 2. So the employee would need to understand to take that first transcript, then have to use it with Google VO3. The thing about VO3 is it is not prompted the same as ChatGPT. There's full documentation on how you should prompt text-to-video models. And so that employee needs to also understand that documentation. So we're not going to do that. We're going to go to AI and we're going to say the transcript that I'm going to give you is going to be overlaid on top of generated scenes. I want you to look through VO3's documentation and help me turn each of them into an optimized prompt that visualizes what needs to be shown based on the transcript. This will be used with VO3. Do you think an employee is going to know the prompt like this? No. No. Not unless they're like really deep into AI. I mean, this is the kind of stuff. Let's say you get the prompt. Now you have to take it to VO3. And then you have to output all of your videos that go around the transcript. Okay, now what? Now we need voiceover. So we have to use a tool that is a text-to-speech, 11 Labs, okay? Now we have to take those transcripts, throw them into 11 Labs, and then the person has to merge them all with Adobe Premiere Pro, and now you have a full workflow of a truly AI-created marketing video for cybersecurity. This in itself, compared to the normal human way without AI doing it, it's still ridiculously long. With AI, it's still faster, but the key point is here, even this is friction. And this is where I'm talking about, right? This is what we're taking care of. Because think about it this way. Instead of fitting the organization's flow, employees' flow around the tool use, okay, why not fit the AI around the organization's flow? That is the lens that I'm trying to showcase here, okay? That's the same lens that we saw very early on. And we didn't just put all our bets inside of it. It actually ended up unfolding into an entire industry that was born, which is the AI automation industry that you're seeing right now. Okay, and we followed through with some successful implementation, which is the reason why I'm standing here talking to you guys today. Okay, now, of course, just to introduce it, customized AI infrastructure automation systems is the word. Now, what these are is these are custom back-end AI systems that can look all kinds of different ways. Let me show you one of them. Okay, this is one of them. This is a back-end for a voice AI system. There's so much custom logic and scripting and coding inside of this, but it looks so drag and drop and modular. There's a lot going on here. This is another one. This is a data ingestion pipeline for a vector database. I'm going to explain to you guys in a little bit what that is. But this is what we built. And then look at this guy. I don't even know if you can see that. This is a monstrosity of a system right here. This is months worth of work, okay? But you're seeing all this stuff, and you're like, what is this? At heart, what everything you're seeing is these are organization logic-based systems. They are built around your organization's logic. I'm not coming to you with a pre-built SaaS. I'm not coming to you with a pre-built tool. I'm literally coming to you with an open canvas and an fundamental understanding of being able to build these around your organization's logic. They're both Python and LangChain based. If you're not familiar with LangChain, for building powerful agentic AI systems. It allows them to type into libraries, APIs, data sources in a scalable way. This is LangChain. I don't know if you guys one of you guys are taking notes. LangChain, if you're really looking to the future, that's one of your keywords, okay? Code, they're both code and no code. Because they're drag and drop interface, those one end-to-end, it depends on what it is that's being built. It can be both code and no code. And they are API centric. Because they're built customized, they bring your existing tech stack to life in a way that things didn't really talk to each other before. They have to be API centric. That's how all the connections are, okay? And then they are running with an internal vector database, okay? What is an internal vector database? I'm gonna ask you guys a quick question. When you type hi into ChatGPT, do you really know what's happening when it responds back to you? Like, what's really happening in the back? You know it's like smarter predictive analysis, but what's really happening?
It's using 100 million gallons of water.
Yes, yes. You're a little bit off. Just what's really happening though? Vector databases is a special kind of database that allows AI, agentic systems, to actually pull and push information to and from a database very quickly. When you say hi to ChatGPT, okay, what ends up happening is your words literally turn into numbers called vectors, and they go inside of a neural network, this huge neural network of all these different numbers that are living inside of the actual model's training data, okay? They're called
Matrix.
What's that?
Matrix. Or the movie. That's a movie.
Matrix. Imagine Matrix. And by the way, there's like visualization of this stuff, but it's literally a 3D world full of numbers. What happens is your text goes to something called an embedding model. It gets turned into numbers, and then the large language model matches those numbers against all of the databases. And it uses semantic search to actually relate which ones go to which is how it knows to know which character to output next. It's like such a smart way to go about it. I know earlier I heard your director of ecom mention pricing solution. Here's a very quick interpretation of vector database. You have a database that has 50 different historical pricing data. You go to an AI and you give it an item and you say, "Oh, what is this?" What the AI will then do, because it's vectorized, it can quickly, in like seconds, look through the last 50 pricing points, that the pieces of data that are inside of that database, and look at what that item was priced over the last 50 times, and then give you an average based on that. That's the power of vector database. It allows agentic systems to really do stuff that are quick with databases. And they're running with customized LLMs. You've heard that word so many times, but what it means, there's so many different ways. Fine-tuning, customization. All this is system prompting and massaging to make it do the system prompting that your employee needs to do. Right? We'll take those words out of your employee and put them into the model. That's what that means. Which means you have full control over literally what's happening in the entire system. Everything that's coming in, everything that's coming out, and all the data and transformation that's happening in between. Okay? I know that was a lot to say to you guys, but the reason they can be built and look so drastically different is because, unlike your old way of thinking about AI as these different standalone products or tools, these kinds of systems are living and breathing. What does that mean? It means they run in the background at all times without having somebody use them. They are in the cloud and they are reactive. They react to things that happen in your environment. And the system sees a specific kind of error log or syslog. And we program to take a specific action based on its conditional logic. It knows to do that based on that. Nobody's having to actually use the system. It's reactive, okay? Which allows these things to literally coexist within your tech stack, in your business application, and across different departments. Again, just like a suit, okay? They are measured around you guys. They are fitted to do a lot of things like solve unique organizational bottlenecks. These are the kinds of things where, in definition, if they were to be removed, your process and your workflows would see dramatic efficiency. You'll see a lot of optimization, and you'll see things go smoother, okay? They are built to also, on mouse, streamline and optimize unique processes. This is the kind of processes that you didn't decide, but just unfolded naturally. This is how your company decides to do things based on what it prefers to do as the company, okay? They're built around that. And at the same time, right, they work alongside your team agentically. Okay, the mouse won't let me do one. They work alongside your team agentically in a way that kind of feels like an extra helping hand instead of somebody having to open up a tool and use it, right? It's literally like just an extra hand that helps carry some of that weight, which is normally on the employee's desk. And they meet you at your desired resolution. This is one of the best parts here. What does that mean? It means, let's say we have an executive team and they want their report that needs to be delivered to them to feel like a heat map, okay? They have their own specific way of looking at it and they want it to be in that specific format. But the management team doesn't want that. They want 5 different visualizations, 5 different charts, and they want it in, they want the nitty-gritty details. That same report is gonna go on each person's desk in the minute that it needs to be, in the same format that they require it to be. Because the system knows the logic to take based on what, like even if it's pulling the data from the exact same database. That's the kind of conditional logic you would build into it, okay? That's basically what that means. And then at the same time, they can be both private, fully self-hosted, and cloud-hosted. They need you where your security needs need to be. Again, we're building it, we're molding it around you guys. So whatever that is, that's what that looks like, okay? Let's see here. So again, because they're autonomous and agentic, they work 24/7, don't sleep, and they handle the kind of work that, if that kind of work were to be removed, your employee can do what they were originally hired to do without having to be stuck in all these little side quests that are part of the job as well, the manual, redundant kind of things.